Yamaha Apex. And can you tell us a little bit about the sled and your ride and your experience on that sled?
Well, first of all, when they allowed us to drive that sled, they wouldn't tell us anything about the sled, which was extremely interesting because we did not know what the engine was. We didn't know anything about the suspension. All we could tell is that there was something going on with the steering, or that they had made the front end of this sled so light, but it didn't make sense because it still turned very positive. And now that I've seen what's going on and it's been released and they have the electronic power steering, it totally makes sense. The biggest thing I saw was that I could drive very aggressively and not get tired. My arms and my shoulders were able to stay much more comfortable. And when I drove really hard, I could keep a very nice line through the corners, whether it was really rough or really smooth, because the steering didn't have negative feedback. It had positive feedback because of the, so it let you know where you were. But there's no negative feedback. There's no kicking, there's no anything, which you don't know until you drive a conventional sled, the difference, which we did get to do. We got to drive the 2010s, and they're nice sleds, but it's a totally different animal, totally different. The motor on the 2011, we noticed right away, has a different sound. In the beginning, we didn't know if it was a 3-cylinder or 4-cylinder because they didn't tell us. But I could tell right away how smooth it was. It was the smoothest motor and engine and clutching that I have ever driven. It was, you could take off from a stop sign and so smooth, just like silk, but yet the throttle response was instantaneous. It was almost like it could predict in your mind what you were going to do with the throttle, and the power was there. We were guessing 150 at least horsepower, and it performed. I never hit the end on this one because we didn't have enough stretches to let her go, but she always had it whenever you wanted it, and it was very smooth. The track hooked up very well with that power too, because you know, if you've got all that power and you can't hook it up, it doesn't make much difference. And this hooked up really well. And they've got a new track on there too, and that's a brand new length, and I don't know what model track they've got on there, but it is matched very well for the horsepower. The ergos for me, I really enjoy. Number one, the hooked handlebars were very comfortable at a very comfortable height, and the hand warmers work, period. That was very nice to have that. It felt like the footwells were further forward for me this year when I would jump back to the 210s and back to the 211. It sat more comfortable for me being a taller rider. The foam on the seat was very comfortable. It was firm yet comfortable. And you could tell the difference when you jump back from sled to sled. But overall, it was the most comfortable, smoothest, powerful Yamaha, pleasant to drive that I've ever driven. It was very impressive. While we were driving the 2011 Yamaha, we noticed right away that it had something different going on with the steering, and we found out that that's the power steering. But the thing I noticed riding behind the other drivers is that when we got into the really rough or on the very smooth, the 2010s would lift the inside ski so much easier, where the 2011 cornered flat, and it was very noticeable. The geometry in that front end must be different because they flat out haul through the turns, and they're very controllable. They stay very flat. They're still ski lift, but it's controllable ski lift, and it's pleasant. It's not something that you feel like you're going to flip over. It's very controllable, and it was definitely noticeable. You've got to drive one of these things. They rock.